me. You better watch out if you ignite me's a road ahead of full prophecy to be the greatest beast the world has ever seen. I feed him every day like the bones clean. I feed him all the hate and he grows me. And he gets claws real big, pissed off quick. And if you cross him, you might drop dead.
Ladies and gentlemen, creatures of the night, we gather today to voyage where no humans have gone before. Welcome to the DT Show, where we bring the fun in dysfunctional.
Oh, this is insane. So apparently, through the use of LiDAR, they have discovered that there are enormous structures underneath the Great Pyramid that go kilometers deep into the earth with coils. They don't understand what it is.
I don't know how they did it. All I know is they did it. I don't think anybody knows how they did it, how they lifted those stones, how they brought them up to that level. I think we're looking, again, at a lost technology.
People who aren't aware, there's a location in the Western Sahara Desert of Mauritania called the Rishat structure. It's also commonly referred to as the Eye of the Sahara. Plato had described Atlantis as being to be made up of concentric circles, 3 of water, 2 of land, which matches the Rishat structure. It also was said to have an opening to the sea at the south. And furthermore, it was said to have mountains to the north, and you just so happen to have mountains called the Atlas mountain chain, which Atlas was said to be the very first king of Atlantis.
And it was this ancient apocalypse 12,800 years ago that wiped that from the human memory banks almost completely, not entirely completely because there were survivors.
Are we alone in the universe? The question is back in the spotlight as government officials speak out in a new documentary.
Let me be clear. UAP are real. Advanced technologies not made by our government or any other government are monitoring sensitive military installations around the globe. Furthermore, the U.S. is in possession of UAP technologies, as are some of our adversaries.
People in New Jersey are concerned and demanding information after a wave of mysterious drone sightings. But the government has yet to give any concrete answers.
Hurry, all freaks, and grab a seat. You don't know what you don't know. It's What the Freak Friday.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the show. I'm DT, Daniel. Welcome to the DT Show. It's Friday, guys. It's finally here. And you know what? I think I might get a cold one here in a little bit. Maybe, maybe not. We'll see. But I hope everybody's had it's finally made it to Friday. Hope everybody's had a great week. Been safe. Looking forward to the weekend. My Pittsburgh Steelers play the Green Bay Packers on Sunday night. So I'm looking forward to that. Looking forward to, talking about football not next week, but the week after. We're going to start bringing a sports element to the channel on Thursdays, I believe. We actually might be changing that to Wednesdays a little bit later on. But it'll be definitely on Thursdays here in the near future with a buddy of mine from a YouTube channel called In Hindsight. We're going to be talking about just kind of NFL stuff and things like that. And it'll be just one show a week. So for those that are interested in sports and things of that nature, I hope you'll join us. And so please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, ring that notification bell. You guys know what to do. Without further ado, Steelers fan says, was that code for me to bring one? Please. Without further ado, let's get into today's conversation. So today we have, let me share the screen real quick. There we go. We got a weird situation going on with some gambling out in the NBA. Nightmare for the league. Gambling scandal roils the NBA. Heat guard Terry Rozier was indicted as part of an investigation into insider sports betting, a separate investigation into what law enforcement describe as Mafia organized rigged poker games led to charges for the Trailblazers coach Chauncey Billups. And this is insane. And some of this goes back far back when it comes to like some of these games that they're looking at them for. They're also looking at these players and coaches in on a basically, from what I understand, is what they were doing is they were bringing in these well-off athletes and personalities from all over the place to come in and play some illegal gambling. And what was happening was they were getting cheated out. In fact, one person lost something like $1.8 million. And, in a single game or something like that, or in a single night. Thank you. I got my beverage. And so in a single night, one person lost $1.8 million, and pretty insane. And what they were doing is they were cheating. Now, I know a lot of people are going to be asking and saying something to the effect like, well, why would these guys do this? Why would they throw away their career? Why would they risk any of this? It's not like the money that they were making during doing gambling wasn't, the money that they would have been making in the NBA. And first and foremost, I think, these guys are athletic, athletes. These guys are competitive. To have made it to the highest stage in any professional sports, you got to be competitive. And so for these competitive athletes, challenging one another, is part of the game. And in raising the stakes, especially early on, I wouldn't be surprised. It was like, hey, I'll beat you in a game of 101 and this and that. And then, it starts off small and it's a slippery slope gambling. And for some, it gets too slippery and they go downhill too far, too fast. And I think, and that's kind of what we're seeing is we'll see some folks here who are probably, they don't need to do this, but just like anybody else who has an addiction, they don't need to do what they're doing, but yet they can't go without it. And gambling is an addiction. There's a certain high that people get off when they win and things of that nature. So there's reasons why there's programs for those to help out those that have a gambling problem. And so in this scenario here, you had, guys that were gambling and wanting to bet money and things of that nature. And they brought in, well-off people, whether they were athletes, celebrities, or just, millionaires from the area or whatever. And they'd bring them in and the players were working with what it sounds like, the Mafia to cheat these guys out of money. And they had some sort of arrangement and some sort of deal. So it's a slippery slope, but let's talk about it. Let's break it down. This is from the nightmare for the league gambling scandal roils, the NBA. Goes on to say the arrest of two well-known NBA figures Thursday in a nationwide federal investigation into the internal gambling and tech scam poker, especially a sitting head coach and former finals most valuable player have roiled the league from players to the front offices to the agents, sources tell NBC. The arrest, particularly of the Hall of Famer and Portland head coach Chauncey Billups, altered the tenure of this week's conversation around the NBA, whose new season had only started only 2 days earlier. Wow. I don't really watch or follow the NBA, to be 110% honest with you. It's too many turnover. Like, I have no idea who's in the game. And not only that, for me, there's like a lot of games. Like with the NFL, I'm totally in tune with it because there's only 17 games and each one counts. If you have a couple of bad games in the NBA, that's fine. You have a couple of bad games in the NFL, you can make a difference of you getting into the playoffs or not. You know what I'm saying? So with the NFL being fewer games, and I guess it increases the drama, so to speak, increases the pressure of each game. And, I don't think I would ever get outside of the playoffs, right? Or towards the end of the season when things start to heat up in the NBA. I don't think I would get emotionally engaged like I do with the NFL. Like with the NFL, if my team loses, I'm not in a good mood, but if my team wins, I'm having a good time. And so, for me, the NBA is just, it's a lot, but towards the end of the season, when things start to heat up, when games start to count a little bit more, and the playoffs happen, that's kind of when I would tune into the NBA. But like I said, there's been like so much turnover and things like that. I don't even know who's on what team anymore and who's still playing and who's not. So it's been a while. But one of the questions that this brought up to my mind is, does this happen in other sports? And I can't I can't help but say that it probably does in some certain way. Now, when it comes to gambling today, it's a lot different than it used to be. Meaning there was only a few things you could gamble on, and there's only a few places that you could gamble at. Las Vegas, the results of games and things of that nature. Today, there's a lot more places where you can do some gambling, and you can gamble on other things, such as like in the NFL, there's yards a certain player may get, over under, passing yards, catches, touchdowns, things of that nature. And so you might be able to affect a player in a betting realm in today's game based off of those micro or minor individual stats, because those are now bettable than it was back in the day. Back in the day, it was like, all right, who won the game, favored by how many points, you're going to bet against the spread or not. I think they may have had certain things, right, with like certain NBA players, like the top athletes of the game. You might get some things to bet on, but it wasn't like it is today. There's way more, and so now you don't. So if somebody wanted to affect the game per se, and make somebody some money, they don't necessarily have to affect the game in its totalities to a certain extent. For instance, if you're a bad referee and you're gambling, and I'm going to use the NFL as an example. What I would be worried about is like, all right, you have two teams coming in. There's a high-powered wide receiver going up against a weak secondary, right? And so you know that this high-powered receiver is supposed to gain X amount of yards or whatever the case may be. So you want to make a bet on the under on everything. And so you get the bad ref, and the bad ref throws penalties on certain plays where that receiver gained yards, or if that receiver was held or a pass interfered with, you don't throw the penalty, right? You allow those things to happen. And so it's not completely affecting the game. I mean, it's affecting that player, and obviously if they're the star player, it's going to affect them to a certain extent. But like, for instance, if that team still has other weapons and other players are still eating and doing what they need to do and getting their yards and points, that referee doesn't matter. It's just that specific player. Those things I can understand. It would make those things easier to do. And that's where I can see if there is an effect on the game today, it's probably there. The little things that would affect not necessarily the entire game, because if you try to throw out the entire game, especially with the amount of cameras and everything else in today's game, which with the NFL, I mean, I'm not familiar with the NBA, but with the NFL, they have so many cameras and they got reviews now from from New York and stuff like that. It would be much more difficult to do it. Not saying it's impossible, but it'd be more difficult to do it. You'd have to throw those like holding penalties where, those plays can be called on almost every play. But sorry, I'm digressing too far off of the NBA. I'm not familiar with the NBA, but I'm going to try to utilize what I know from the NFL with the NBA. I hope you guys are okay with that. All right, let's continue this. The mood in the front office executive for one team said it went from fanfare to fear. Here's the other thing. I believe that the commissioner of the NBA or some higher up in the NBA was just on Pat McAfee's show like 2 days ago, like right before, like the day before, talking about like, yeah, we got to get a grip on gambling. I think they knew. He goes on to say, who else is involved? The executive said it's a nightmare for the league. And that's true. I mean, you have some prominent players, Hall of Fame player, head coach, and this is just the surface, the tip of the iceberg. How many other players are doing this? How many other coaches? The NBA has not been a stranger to these type of controversies. There was a guy, Tim something, maybe Donahue or Donnie or something like that. He was a referee who did certain things like that for the mob, for the Mafia. I think I saw him on one of these, news channel things that were talking or covering this case, referencing what he got arrested for, referencing why he was how he affected the game back in the day. But yeah, who else is involved would be crazy. I mean, what kind of names could we find out? Back in the day, Michael Jordan was a guy that supposedly, it's pretty well documented, he gambled a lot, whether it was at the casino or on himself or whatever the case may be. But he was a gambler. Yeah, he had the edge too. And so he was and is, in my opinion, the best NBA player ever to play the game. So if he may have been somewhat involved, and not necessarily to the effect that these guys, because what these guys were doing, like one of them, the player Rozzy, he faked an injury so he didn't play, and so that it would keep his stats low, and kind of like what I was saying, trying to minimize the points that people were expecting him to make. And so he had a phantom injury a couple years back, and went down, and that's one of the reasons why they arrested him. The NBA did, however, investigate that scenario, and they cleared him. So, I know his lawyer is going to come in there and say, "Hey, the NBA investigated it." And I'm going to say, like, if I was the judge, I'd say so. If the Walmart security officer wants to, investigate somebody for shoplifting, that's one thing, but it's the police officer that comes in and makes the, when he makes the arrest and does everything else, that's the official stuff, right? So NBA could have investigated. They don't have the power and the investigative tools and the means that law enforcement does. And they also not paid by the same franchise, right? And so, they don't have the same employer. So I think it'd be much, obviously, more fair, more, down the line with what law enforcement can do versus what the NBA could. But yeah, they looked into him and they cleared him. Well, he's been arrested for it. Surprised they got caught. A player agent. Hold on. I'm sorry, I went too far. Reactions to the extraordinary news spread quickly, ranging from surprise to anger at the league itself. According to 5 people who work inside or closely with the NBA, all whom were granted anonymity because they were not permitted to speak publicly about the matter. Surprised they got caught, a player agent said, but not surprised as gambling is happening everywhere. See, statements like that kind of make me believe this is something that's going pretty strong in the NBA. And it sounds like it. Terry Rozier was indicted as part of the investigation into insider sports betting, a separate investigation into what law enforcement officials described as a mafia organized rigged poker game led to the charges for Billups. Former player and coach Damon Jones was named in both indictments. Shocking day, Indiana Pacers coach Rick Carcel, who is also the president of the National Basketball Coaches Association, said Thursday before a game. Carcel said, "We contacted Billups, and he and his representatives asked how Billups was doing, but did not hear back." Interesting. You're contacting him, right as he's getting arrested. Should give him some space, man. Or are you worried of what he's going to say? My opinion. And this is a complete theory and speculation channel right now. So believe at your own risk. I think I'm gonna make a shirt that says that. Believe at your own risk. Let's continue. Billups' attorney denied his client's involvement. Anyone knows Chauncey Billups knows he's a man of integrity. Men of integrity do not cheat and defraud others, attorney Chris Hayward said. I forgot this one. It's because it's a very serious situation, Carcel said. The irony, I guess, from my perspective, is yesterday was the day our general counsel came down and read us regulations on gambling and warned our coaching staff, our players, and support staff about these different things. Interesting. It sounds like they knew. I bet you they knew. It goes on to say, Jones, in addition to the rigged poker games, was also accused of disclosing privileged information to bettors about the injury status of a player before a game between the Los Angeles Lakers and the Milwaukee Bucks in February 2023. That player was LeBron James. According to multiple reports, though he is not named in the indictment or accused of any wrongdoing, Jones was also accused of telling the same bettors on January 15, 2024, that another Lakers player would miss the game because of an injury. Before that knowledge was public, that only player fitting the indictment description is Anthony Davis. And here's a picture of Coach Jones. But so why is this important for those that don't follow sports, right? So if you have a key player to if you know before anybody else knows that a key player on the opposite team is going to go down, that might affect the way people think the outcome of the game is going to go down. And so this is basically like insider trading when it comes to Wall Street. Oh, man, I almost said that all weird. Where, if you have some information that, a CEO did something, he got arrested, and you feel that the stock is going to fall the next day, so you sell that day, right? It's kind of like that. You know that this person's not going to play before everybody else does, so you go make your bets while the bets are good, right? While the bet is today, like let's just say, we'll use the game that they used, the Lakers. If you think that the game that they're going to play and their star player LeBron James is going to play and they're going to win by like 4 points, but and the odds for him to, the odds for them to win are 2-1, right? And I'm just going to use random, round numbers. And then, well, he's out now, so that flips the odds, and I'm just round numbers. If somebody betted that, for instance, that the Lakers were going to lose, and betted a significant amount of money at that time, that bet would be worth more when the thought was that LeBron James was going to be playing versus once everybody found out that he wasn't going to be playing. Now the odds makers are saying, whoa, we no longer think that it's going to be a win. It could be closer. They could completely flip it to a loss. And, the betting line changes all the time. It depends usually how people bet. Sometimes when a large amount of people start betting one way, Vegas and the betting lines will start to move the goalpost a little bit because they're like, well, what do you guys know what we don't know type of thing, right? They get kind of nervous too. And so we'll see the betting line move if somebody puts in, or there's a large group of people that put in money in a certain direction. Now I'm more familiar with like the NFL betting and stuff like that. Again, I follow that much more than I do NBA. Billups, while he was not named in the Razier incident, it seemingly implicated, however, the incident refers to a person named Co-Conspirator 8, who is described as an Oregon resident who played in the NBA from 1997 to 2014 and has been a coach since 21. I apologize. Billups was drafted in 97, has played and last played in 2014, and became the head coach in 2021. Kind of narrowing it down a little bit. Co-Conspirator 8 is accused of giving bettors inside information about a Trailblazers game in March of 2023 when Billups was their head coach. Co-Conspirator 8 is alleged to have told another defendant in the case that Portland would be tanking the game and that several of the team's players would be held out with injuries. Other defendants in the case are alleged to have used this information to place bets against the Trailblazers. Now, how did they know that that was the case? That the following team was going to be tanking? And from what I understand, in this game, 4 of the starters did not dress. Just food for thought, right? It just seems kind of weird. It seems like there's more to this and more people involved. Billups' attorney denied this allegation. Sean Billups is never and would never gamble on basketball games, provide insider information, or sacrifice the trust of his team and the league, as it would tarnish the game he has devoted his entire life to. Yeah, well, I don't know about that, buddy. I don't know. I'm not going to jump to conclusions, but the guy's been arrested. Typically, there's some evidence to it, and who they've involved too. I mean, and who's involved in this arrest? You've Cash Patel in the FBI. You have some of the Mafia families that are involved in this. It's not without a heavy investigation that arrests like this do not happen. You get what I'm saying? Like, this isn't something like, oh, one beat cop saw somebody walking out of a bar and out of the bag and discovered a card game. No, that's not what happened here. The league has dealt with gambling scandals before. Jonte Porter of the Toronto Raptors was banned for life last year for violating the league's gambling rules after a league investigation determined he had disclosed information about his participation to bettors for financial gain. He later pled guilty to conspiracy to commit wire fraud in federal court and is set to be sentenced in December. Last season, the NBA said in a statement that it was aware of an investigation by U.S. Attorney Office related to Rozier. A culture of gambling has existed in the NBA for years. Multiple people said inside locker rooms, it's not uncommon to hear discussions of recent games of poker or boryi, a trick-taking card game similar to the spades that is popular among basketball players. A longtime team employee said that wagering in the competitive that field were so persuasive that nearly every flight he was on had multiple high-dollar games taking place at once, often between players and between coaches. That's insane. But, I mean, you know the rules, right? I mean, I think I'm assuming every NBA player gets told the rules when they enter the league. Now, yeah, I guess it's kind of, if you're a young player, you see your coaches gambling on the plane, and, I guess it's easy to fall into that trap. But just can't do it. Can't do it. JJ Redick of the Los Angeles Lakers head coach also played in the league for 15 years. Once told a story on his podcast about nearly coming to blows with a teammate because of gambling after he referred to the boryi, or whatever it's called, as the greatest gambling game because of how the pot can grow exponentially. The closest I ever came to a teammate punching me was over a card game on a team flight. In January 2010, a former All-Star Gilbert Arenas was arrested in violation of gun control after he and a teammate, Javaris Crinton, took firearms to the Washington Wizards locker room as a result of a gambling dispute. Arenas said it was a dispute that started over a game of the same French game. Arenas avoided jail time, but was sentenced to 2 years supervised probation in the case. And I didn't know this. People were getting wild out there in the NBA like this over gambling. That's insane. A league source told NBC News it is not uncommon for players to separate into different groups based on their salaries. A younger player, for example, may not gamble right away with a superstar on a max contract, but as salaries have increased in the NBA, the league's highest player will make over $59 million this season. The stakes on the team flights have only gotten higher. Outside of the flights, players are often set up with the invite of high-stakes poker game, with cities such as Los Angeles and Houston cited as popular gamblers. According to the source, Arenas was arrested in July as part of a separate Justice Department investigation into illegal poker games into the Los Angeles area and has pleaded not guilty. Redick, who has coached the Lakers since 2024, told reporters Thursday that the team had gone through meetings that day about the league's anti-gambling rules. A little too late, don't you think? The day before, I mean, that tells me that you found out, and you're trying to say, "Hey, we put out training." This is a CYA. We put out training. We had meetings. We try to explain. Yeah, a little late too. You know what I'm saying? A little late. It's obvious the front of everyone's awareness. Although gambling in the NBA has been long intertwined, Thursday's arrest put the league on different type of alert. And an agent said because it involved not lower-level players, but Rozier, who made more than $150 million in his career, and someone with the stature of Billups, a former NBA Finals MVP, who was inducted into the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame only last year. Wow. And is widely respected around the league. The Trailblazers deferred to comment to the NBA and announced that their assistant coach, Tiago Splitter, would assume the head coaching responsibilities. The NBA first investigated Rozier after it was alerted in March 2023 to what a league spokesperson later said was an unusual betting activity related to his performance. Such bets on individual occurrences during the game, not the outcome of the games themselves. Hey, kind of what I was saying earlier. It's exactly what I was saying earlier, where you could bet on certain things of the game and not necessarily on the outcome and still make some pretty serious money. Called prop bets. They've become very popular. Concerned with, hey, I live in Texas, so I don't bet either. So for it's not legal to bet here. Like the you can do fantasy football betting, and so that's about it. The whole like everything else, over unders and all that other stuff with DraftKings and FanDuel and stuff. That's a no here in the state of Texas. So I'm not familiar with like how the bets work, but I do cover sports with my channel called State of the Steelers, and so I am familiar with the betting line and things of that nature with the NFL. But I'm not the most well versed when it comes to bets. I'm not really big into betting. Concerned that bets could give players incentives to manipulate their performance, financial gain after Porter was banished last year. The NBA last year persuaded sportbooks to no longer offer under bets for players on 10-day or 2-day contracts who generally make the least amount of money. Oh, wow. I mean, you have to go to that effect. That's crazy. Rozier's lawyer, Jim Trusty, told NBC News on Thursday that Rozier had been cleared by the NBA. The league never went quite that far publicly, however, saying in January 2024 that its investigation did not find a violation of NBA rules. Asked at a news conference in July about the NBA's investigation and whether he was comfortable with the findings, the NBA commissioner Adam Silver acknowledged that the federal investigators have more resources in their disposal than the league does, than we do in an investigation. Basically what I just said too. That's what obviously I haven't read this article, guys. I just kind of put it together. We're reading it together for the first time. But yeah, basically what I said earlier about the NBA, law enforcement have better resources. However, because many interpreted Rozier to be F cleared by the league, only being arrested later, a high-ranking team executive said Thursday that he was concerned that people will lose faith in the NBA's ability to investigate these things. 100%. There's a question mark there. Even I am suspicious of the fact that y'all investigated and couldn't figure it out. You know what I mean? I mean, there's got to be an accusation if somebody's investigating it. What's that accusation? I get they're limited too, but I feel like they probably knew. I mean, they know that so many people are betting. The executive added that he too had become dubious about what the NBA's investigatory arm would turn up from the investigation. It handles or outsources to outside law firms, such as the ongoing probe into whether the Los Angeles Clippers circumvented the salary cap. The thing is not about Terry Rozier or Chauncey Billups. The executive said it's about that we trust the NBA to uphold the integrity of what's happening on the basketball court. The NBA said in a statement Thursday it continues to review federal indictments and allegations, which it took with the utmost seriousness. Billups was arrested less than 9 hours after his Portland season opening loss. Wow. At home, a game notably attended by the team's current owner and financier in the process of buying the franchise. That's crazy. You got somebody that's about to buy the franchise and then this all happens. That's insane. Man, I'm gonna have to get up and get another beer here in a minute. Billups was asked whether the change in ownership added pressure to his job. I do the best I can. I let the chips fall where they may. So I wanted to watch this video here. And this one's going to kind of show us how they were able to do like some of the, is this the right one? Let me see. Yeah, this is the right one. The high-tech stuff where they were able to look at the like how they were able to cheat during poker. It's pretty insane. Let's watch it.
New reaction to the gambling scandal rocking the NBA.
I'm ashamed that those guys will put their families and their careers in jeopardy.
Chauncey Billups, a Hall of Fame player and current coach of the Portland Trail Blazers, and Terry Rozier of the Miami Heat, both seen leaving court. They're among more than 30 people arrested, accused of running schemes that made millions by allegedly rigging sports bets and poker games. Billups and another former player, Damon Jones, are accused of working with the Mafia, using their celebrity status to lure wealthy people to illegal poker games that were rigged.
Everybody else at the poker game, from the dealer to the players, including the face cards, were in on the scam.
The technology allegedly used in the scheme is like something out of Mission Impossible. The FBI says the suspects used special glasses and contact lenses that could read invisible markings on cards.
It's
Casino
insane.
security expert Sal Piasante showed us some of the technology.
I can't tell you what that top card is, but if I pop in contact lenses, or if I'm wearing my poker glasses, when you look at that card through that filter, you'll see what that card is.
The FBI says the suspects also used card shufflers
Insane.
that were rigged and used what's described as an X-ray
What's going on,
poker
everybody?
tape that allowed them to see face-down cards through the felt on the table. They also allegedly used what's known as an analyzer. It looks like a cell phone, but when placed in front of a deck of cards, it uses a hidden camera to determine which player will win, no matter how well the deck is shuffled.
This deck is marked invisibly on the side with a barcode. So when this deck gets shuffled and gets placed onto the table, this
Look at
camera
this.
right
This is
now
insane.
is scanning those cards, and it's going to tell you automatically who's going to win.
The device correctly predicting the hand closest to the device will win.
And you win with a full house, 3s and 5s.
Experts say the sophisticated scheme shows that the Mafia has modernized.
Everyone talks about the Mafia getting smaller, going away. Mafia doesn't go away. They will change based upon the law and how they can make money.
In a separate indictment, Rozier was charged in connection with an illegal sports gambling scheme.
Terry Rozier, right foot discomfort, doubtful to return.
Prosecutors say during this game in 2023, Rozier, then with the Hornets, tipped off bettors that he would fake an injury and exit the game. Bettors placed more than $200,000 on him to underperform in the game.
The proceeds were later delivered to his home, where the group counted their cash.
Rozier and Billups deny the allegations, their lawyers vowing to fight in court. With both men making millions in salary with their teams, many are wondering what would have been their motive to get involved in such a scheme.
How much more do you need? Especially if you know you get caught, you can do jail time, lose your career. You know, put a bad image on yourself or your family.
We have to realize gambling is an addiction. So the addiction of it is what makes you make illogical decisions. Ain't got nothing to do with addiction. That's just total stupidity on these two dudes' part.
The NBA previously invested.
That's funny. That had nothing to do with addiction. It's pure stupidity on these two guys' part. That's hilarious. Hilarious. I agree with him, though. It is pure stupidity. Let's see. Is this the... All right. So this is the one NBC dropped. Says NBA gambling scandal shows that La Cosa Nostra is still alive and well. Associates of four New York infamous five families crime syndicates allegedly backed a multi-million-dollar poker con that used elaborate technology to cheat unsuspected players and brought rare, unappreciated light to the mob's shadowy operations. So just kind of like what they were saying about the mob going away and disappearing. Hasn't disappeared, hasn't gone away. They just kind of adapted and they changed. It's kind of like all these different empires, right? Like the Roman Empire. It didn't dissolve and go away. It became a church. The what was it, like the British Empire turned into the banking system. Those type of things, right? You have all these different empires that have just kind of changed over time. And so same thing with, I guess with anything. If you're going to succeed, you got to adapt, right? And I guess that goes for crime as well. And so let's see. Associates from the Bonan, but man, I said this earlier, right? But you know what? It's probably the adult beverage. Bonanno I hope I said that right. Gambino, Genovese, and Lucci's crime families were named in a sweeping indictment that also ensnared Portland Trailblazers coach Chauncey Billups, and one-time NBA journeyman Damon Jones, according to prosecutors from the Eastern District of New York. Federal authorities didn't hesitate Thursday to pin the poker scam on La Cosa Nostra, showing that organized crime is still a modern law enforcement concern, even after FBI operations in the 1980s and 90s seemed to decimate the five families. The mafia is still a thing, said George Schumacher, vice president of exhibits and programs for the Mob Museum in Las Vegas. The mob works best when the public knows less. He was a poet and didn't even know it. About the people involved, according to Shoemaker, I'm going to just call him Shoemaker because that's kind of what it looks like, who called famed bosses like the late Dapper Don, John Gotti, and Aberration. They didn't want the general public to be well-versed in their business. The one guy who kind of defied that whole thing was John Gotti because he just believed that he was untouchable. A dozen mafia associates played a role in the poker scam, prosecutors say. They actually name him. We have Ernest Aliello and Julius J. Zolani were linked to the Bonanu crime family. Lou App, Acapella, or Apacelia. Man, I probably should have worked on some of these names. With the Gambino family, we got Matthew, the wrestler. He was with the Genovese crime family. Seth Trustman, linked to the Lucci's crime family. And Thomas Juice Gilardo. Why do they call him Juice? Is he on roids or what? Thomas Juice Gilardo. Some of these names are weird. So you got Matthew, the wrestler. We have Lou App. We have the Flapper Poker. That's Amar Flapper Poker. I ain't even going to try to pronounce that. Awade. John. Nobody else has any nicknames there. You got the wrestler. You have Jay. Julius J. Zolani. Gambling is an easy pinch and a bread and butter income source for the mob. The author and former Gambino mobsters Luis Ferrante told NBC News. Let's see. They run Janet Smith comes in saying that they run an Italian soccer league. They make billions there too. 100%. 100%. What's going on, everybody? Bonano. I hope I said that right. Good to see everybody. What's going on, Miss 101? What's going on, Sirius? Hope you're doing okay. Hope everything's all right in your side of the world right now. What's going on, Chloe? How's everybody doing tonight? Good to see everybody. Thank you for being here. What's going on, Mustang? Hey, what's going on, Casey? Good to see everybody tonight. Hope you guys are having as hey, Kaylee, how's it going? And Fancy Nancy, how you guys doing? Hope you guys are having as good of a night as I am. I'm enjoying myself. As you probably can tell by the way I'm reading, I don't really drink, so it doesn't take much for me anymore. Let's see. It wasn't all surprise, Ferrante said. Gambling has been a mafia mainstay for the last 100 years. With the RICO indictments that put so many people away for the rest of their lives in the 1980s and the 90s, the mob has sort of scaled back, and they struck with a loan sharking and gambling because if you get busted, as long as there's no violence involved, nobody's beat up or threatened, it's a slap on the wrist. Not anymore. You know, they might make an example out of these guys too. And the reason why is because you want people to be afraid of doing it again, right? So you make an example, you give them like 20 years, 15 years, something super long, and you try to scare some of these other people who think they're untouchable as well. Into being straight, you know, scare them straight. You know, I wouldn't be surprised if that ends up happening. And it sounds like Gallardo. That's what I thought too. It's Gallardo. Well, isn't that like No, that's Gillardo. I don't know. Having a good night. It's Friday. Does surprise me a little that these players are involved in a scandal like this. They are already rich. Yeah, it's kind of like those folks that steal, even though they have like a lot of money, and I forgot what they're called, but they have to steal just because it's they got a problem with stealing. It's a rush, whatever. You know, gambling is the same thing. Gambling is the same thing. He added these guys could do a nickel, maybe in the can, as opposed to doing 30 to 40 years of life sentences. The nickel being 5 years. So I guess what he's trying to say is that if all you do is not beat anybody up and just involved in gambling, you might do 5 years, versus if you beat anybody up or hurt anybody, it could be 30, 40 to life. Okay. Organized crime soldiers and associates are busted all the time, but rarely make the news. New York criminal defense lawyer and former Brooklyn prosecutor says. It's not what it used to be, but it's definitely still exists. In underground poker games and things like that, where you need protection, you need a source of cash, the mob still has its involvement. But I mean, this probably is going to hurt their business a little bit. Like, you know, you go to the mafia to get some money and you try to gamble, and now you found out that you're just losing. But then again, these people that have this addiction, this may not sway them one way or another. With legal online gambling, users are required to put up all the money before they place a bet. But the crime families operate outside of the rules by acting as intermediary, offering people the ability to place bets on credit. That's kind of how they get you, though. That's what I was just about to say. They get you here with these big old bets and put you on a credit, and then they own you, and you can never get out of it because, you know, you go to the betting to try to win your money so that you can pay them off, but it's rigged. And so you never get out. They own you forever. There's still a need for that. There are people who want to bet on credit, which, as you know, with legalized operations, you really can't do. So that's part of the mob's territory. Federal action against Billups and Jones spill into two separate indictments covering poker and inside sports betting information. And I think that's how the mob would kind of probably get some of these players and stuff, is they would do the same thing. Get them to bet off of credit and get them, maybe even intimidate them a little bit, probably, and get them to do what it is that you want them to do. The alleged mafia members are only tied to the alleged poker scheme, but the mob does have a long history involvement in sports betting and poker. And that's the other thing too, because like if you're like this Rozier guy, right? And let's just say he got in deep, and this is just my speculation, right? He gets in deep with the mob and the mafia, and or somebody he knows gets in deep, and it's not even him. It's like they targeted one of his family members or something like that. And now they're telling him, hey, we're going to, get your brother, get your cousin, uncle, whatever he is to him, to play bad or whatever, go down with an injury or something's going to happen to you. Now, it don't sound like that's the situation, because it sounded like, based on that, what we just heard a little while ago, that he got paid some dividends from this of some sort. And so it doesn't sound like that's going to be the case, but let's just say that was the case. It's not like he can go to law enforcement and say, hey, this guy's kind of forced me, because I'm not saying that you can't, but I mean, he's going to put himself in a lot of danger. Right. And you now put yourself in a situation where if he was forced to do things against his will, which I don't think that's the case, but this is how they get you too. Right. Because now if you go and narc on these guys or try to testify against them, there's a long history of things that happen to witnesses there too, right? And so you put yourself in a really bad position. So, it's always just best not to be there first place, right? I did read that. Did you? It didn't say that he was involved. Fancy had said that the coach, and I think it was from the other team, told bettors that he had found out that LeBron James wasn't going to play and let them know that he wasn't playing before that news became public, and so that they can influence the bet. But no, I don't think LeBron James is involved yet. But I don't know if he, well, let me put it this way. I have no idea if he's involved or not. But I don't think, based off of the information here, that that's what they were trying to allude to. But I wouldn't know, one way or the other. Wouldn't be surprised me if he did get arrested for it, and if he didn't, it's no idea. Yeah, no problem. The alleged mafia members also tied the alleged poker scheme. Oh yeah. So the most famous betting scandal in American history, when 1919 Chicago White Sox threw the World Series, was allegedly engineered by gambler Arnold Rothstein, a mentor to the early Genovese boss Charlie Lucky Luciano. Guess he wasn't really lucky if you're fixing the bets, it's not really luck, right? The Colombo crime family has alleged connections to the NBA officials in the 1990s and early 2000s. I wonder if that's what they like. I don't know if the guy's name was like Tom Donahue. I know that was wasn't that like a dude that talked like Maury Povich or whatever his name was? But there was a guy like, maybe it was Tim Donahue. I don't know. Let me see. Let me open up this link. Tim Donahue or Donahue. There you go. This guy. This is the guy I was talking about. Tim Donahue. Yeah. This thing. From Shaq's reaction, I believe it. He sounded dad disappointed. That's true. Well, I mean, Shaq worked really hard, right, to build the NBA up. He won championships and things. I'm sure he doesn't want people to look back at his success and try to say that it was done because, fix things with the NBA and Mafia. So this is disappointing to him for that reason as well, right? In my opinion. So this guy, Tim Donahue. Why? Donahue. I don't know. But that guy, I'm going to call him Tom Donahue from here on out. He could have just told a friend and did not know it would go further, LeBron. That's possible. Even though sports betting is largely legal in most states, it still didn't stop several Gambino soldiers from taking illegal bets in New York, state prosecutors said last year in a 17-person indictment. The Lucchese crime family had alleged ties to racketeering, gambling, and money laundering operations out of New Jersey poker room that was taken down early this year. The New York City area of 5 families included 4 mentioned in the indictment, plus the Colombo crime family. FBI Director Kash Patel said federal law enforcement had entered and executed a system of justice against La Cosa Nostra to include the Bonanno, Gambino, Genovese, and Lucchese crime families. Old-fashioned mob muscle ensured victims paid up from their losses in rigged games. Damn. With respect to poker games held in New York City area, members of the Bonanno, Gambino, and Genovese crime families used threats and intimidation to assure payments of debts in games organized by defendants. And they name a few. All crime families involved received proceeds from the crooked games. Mafias alleged that the cutting-edge technology that included hidden camera, X-rays, that shouldn't surprise anyone. So they had X-ray machines that was able to see what cards you had, like when you had your cards facing down on the table. It's insane, but I mean, when you're making like millions of dollars, you probably go to no expense, right? But that's insane. That is insane. The Mafia's alleged use of cutting-edge technology. Oh, yeah, we got that. Because a mob boss can reach out to experts as easily as anyone else. The mob moves with technology, Don't think that some capo, Frankie Nine Fingers, or Joe the Butcher is making these moves. That's funny. They're getting some geek who knows technology, and he's doing it for them. And poker is no different from fuel. Well, I mean, let's go back to the whole geek and things. I mean, there are people who count cards and do all these other things that are very, very intelligent, and they've beaten the system that means and manner for a long time. And so, am I surprised that somebody with that type of intelligence over time, influencing other people with that may potentially be of the same social sphere, come up with some, these incredibly clever ways of being able to cheat? Yeah, it makes sense. Makes 100% sense. The poker is no different from fuel, concrete, and construction when it comes to wise guy involvement, according to Ferrante, the author of Bottega, Clash of the Titans, A History of the American Mafia. The mob only made multiple families involved when it becomes something like gasoline, when they're doing multi-millions of dollars. Concrete when they are pouring on concrete in New York. The windows when they are putting in all new energy efficiency windows in the 90s. That's when all the families get involved because it's too big and there's so much money involved that one family can't keep it to themselves. So they've involved 5 crime families. It's interesting. Let's check out this. What is this?
Also breaking right now, Miami Heat guard Terry Rozier, I hope I'm saying that right, appearing in federal court facing charges of wire fraud and money laundering as part of a sprawling mafia-backed gambling probe. And that puts the integrity of the entire league in question now. Before we bring in Clay Travis, let's check in with senior correspondent Eric Shawn in New York City. Hi, Eric.
Hi, Aisha. Well, the feds say it is the tip of the iceberg when you're dealing with gambling, they say, in the NBA. Besides Terry Rozier, prosecutors also charged Portland Trail Blazers head coach Chauncey Billups and former Cleveland Cavaliers guard and assistant coach Damon Jones. The indictments say members of the Portland Trail Blazers, for example, secretly fixed a game and the bettors used that information for wagers. The indictment says, quote, the Trail Blazers were going to be tanking, i.e. intentionally losing, to increase their odds of getting a better draft pick in the upcoming NBA draft. Several of the Trailblazers' best players would not be playing. For Los Angeles Lakers versus Milwaukee Bucks game, authorities accused Damon Jones of using inside medical information on players, texting a co-defendant allegedly saying, quote, get a big bet on Milwaukee tonight before the information is out. Player 3 is out tonight, bet enough so D. Jones can eat. The second indictment accuses Billups and Jones, too, of participating in a $7 million worth mob-run poker games that were fixed in New York City by the Gambino, Genovese, and Bonanno crime families. Working
Bonanno,
together.
there you go.
Authorities say the Mafia now uses high tech for its scams. A shuffling machine that can actually count cards, an X-ray poker table that can read the cards upside down, and iPhones that can secretly show the cards in order to cheat.
This phone looks like a regular phone, but it's not. It's a scanning device. If you listen, you'll hear it. 2, that means the second hand is going to win right now if I deal these cards out for poker. 2. So if you're sitting in the second hand right now, you don't have a queen 4 suited. You're staying in. Now you have a full house. I'm sorry, not a full house, a flush. Those numbers would be transmitted to me via an earpiece.
Wow. Well, Rozier's and Billups' lawyers deny any wrongdoing. The FBI, by the way, has put them on leave, and the FBI does expect more arrests. Aisha.
Wow. More arrests, too. I'm not surprised. I mean, that seems crazy. I'm not going to lie. That's freaking nuts. That is nuts. Crazy stuff, guys. Crazy stuff. Well, answer some questions ask your questions if you have any. Put some stars there so I know you're talking to me. Now we're gonna be dropping this off in about 5 minutes, and so Want to say hello to Mark. What's going on, Mark? I don't know if I said hi earlier or not, but how you doing? My problem with the X-ray card table is you should wear a lead jockstrap. Just saying, man. You got points there. You got a point there. Let's see. You could have just told a friend you did not know and did not go further. Gotcha. Yeah, it's possible. It's possible. I don't know. When it comes to, all this stuff, I want to see the indictments. I think that's what's going to happen next. I'm going to look up the indictments, kind of read through them, see what it is that they're actually saying. Got to find them. I got to get better at finding those things. But crazy stuff, guys. Crazy stuff. What people would do nowadays. It's insane. Those games can be long. Radiation for that long changes DNA and fertility. I 100% believe that. It's a lot of radiation. And if you have somebody who has a problem, right, and they've been going back and forth and back and back and back, coming back, getting under those same tables. Yeah. And for those that, because there's some people that are standing up for, the coach and stuff through, some are, but, there's going to be a lot that are going to be really upset when they find out that he cheated them. And not only that, but that they're probably going to go to jail too, because they were involved in it. It'll be interesting to see who backs him up for a long period of time. I would assume those that do probably had no idea. Maybe not. I want to see all the names. They only named less than half, right? They only named a few, yes. I want to see who else in the NBA is involved. I guess whoever starts dropping, right? Let me see if there's any news right now. NBA betting scandal. What's going on in the last 8 minutes? Let's see. Sports betting guru sugar caught with one-way ticket to Colombia. What? So New York Post is saying that the Spets betting guru Sugar caught with one-way ticket to Colombia in a bizarre prelude to explosive NBA. Well, I wish I could see it. Case. So many dang ads on the New York Post. Look at this. There it goes. Sporting bet guru ensnared in the explosive NBA gambling scandal tried to flee the country in January with $10,000. That was a long time ago. As the feds closed in on a separate case. Why are you trying to tell me about this now? Let's see. Well, let's see what it says. Feds pursued a point-shaving case against him and an exiled NBA player, Jonte Porter. So there you go. Another situation. Be careful with the New York Post, guys. So many ads there. But yeah. Did they have a fun name for the college administration? Not yet. I mean, right now it's just the NBA scandal. So we'll see the gambling scandal. We'll see what comes up. But all righty, guys. Well, that's going to do it for me tonight. I hope you guys have a safe night and a safe weekend. Y'all be safe. I'll probably be on sometime this weekend, whether it's Sunday or Saturday. But I'll be back on this weekend, talk a little bit more about some of the cases that we've been covering. I think that, might do a show where we're going to be taking your phone calls. So make sure you guys stay in the loop for that. Please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, ring that notification bell. I'll see you guys later. You have a good night. Peace out, y'all.